Today we're going to be talking about Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. Which option should we choose? And just sort of the current state of American politics in the realm of Trump and Biden, because that is still the realm we are in, unless one of them peels over and dies, which is, possible. They're both quite old, and we're not going to be talking about, oh yeah, Joe Biden is so old. He's such a, old piece of shit. I know Trump has 91 criminal charges against him. He tried to illegally keep himself in power after losing by 7 million votes. Oh yeah, all he really did as president was completely mismanage a pandemic, leading to the economy being completely fucked up, the after effects we're still dealing with that people somehow blame on Joe Biden. Oh yeah, all he did as president was cut taxes for the wealthy. Oh my gosh, Trump is so much better. He's so much smarter. He's so much sharper. He thinks he's running against Obama, but oh my gosh, he's so much better than Biden. Obviously, sarcasm. We're going to be using the flip side, which is basically a organization that will send you emails and they'll go over both sides of the political spectrum and they'll go issue by issue. They'll usually send an email every weekday without critiquing other candidates. What has Joe Biden done that you like enough to believe he should serve another 4 years as president? The Biden administration has a significant record of accomplishments. His first 2 years were among the most productive of any president in the past half century. The 1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief package was as large as President Obama's stimulus package and healthcare bill combined and provided much needed relief for families, businesses, and state governments. The Inflation Reduction Act is the largest climate bill in U.S. history. Medicare has been allowed for the first time to negotiate drug prices. Unemployment is at its lowest rate in 50 years, and inflation is falling. Other legislative successes include expanding background checks and red flag laws for gun purchases, boosting domestic semiconductor production through the CHIPS Act, reauthorizing the Violence Against Women Act, electoral reform, and the bipartisan infrastructure bill. The Biden administration has successfully nominated 152 federal judges and has seen his nominees confirmed at the highest rate since the Kennedy administration. So, yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people just have political amnesia for whatever reason. And I know people say, oh, well, the news cycle moves fast. No, this is an issue with the voters as well. Why are people forgetting so many things that happened over the course of 2 years in 2021, 20 to the end of 2022, going into 2023 when unfortunately the Democrats lost the House. Unlike the Inflation Reduction Act, the largest investment in fighting climate change in U.S. history, people act like that just didn't happen. The Electoral Count Act, which makes clear the role of the vice president, which Donald Trump tried to make Vice President Pence at the time of January 6th, when his role as laid out in the Constitution was to count the electoral votes sent from the states and to certify the election for the winner, of these states. Donald Trump pressured Mike Pence into just unilaterally rejecting those electoral votes. Obviously, that's fucking bullshit. Even on the Republican primary debate stage, Mike Pence got, I think, almost everyone there. I think maybe with the exception of Vivek Ramaswamy, who's just a radical Trump ass kisser who has no chance to the nomination because he's just not Trump. I have no idea like why he thinks the strategy would work, but anyway, yeah, just absolute bullshit what Trump was trying to do. And, Joe Biden and the Democrats, they actually got something done to help prevent that from happening again. And that's a very good thing. The bipartisan infrastructure bill, Donald Trump said he'd get infrastructure done. He never did that. Part of the issue with Trump that I think a lot of people don't remember, even though, I was 17 in 2020, I was still paying attention to the politics and that sort of thing going on. And just something that just struck me was that it didn't even really seem like Trump was doing much at all. He really wasn't doing fucking anything, okay? In his first 2 years, he did what? He cut taxes for the wealthy with his 2017, I don't even know what it's called, but cut taxes for the wealthy. Did that help the middle class for the most part? Absolutely not. So yeah, that's really all he fucking did, other than, cutting every single fucking piece of climate legislation he could get his hands on. Every regulation, he peeled back regulations, that would stop mercury from being dumped in our waterways. So yeah, Donald Trump doesn't care about people ingesting mercury, which is extremely dangerous to child development, to pregnant women, it's just hazardous for human health. He wants to dump toxic, metals and waste in our water. He doesn't care about the environment at all. All he cares about is big business. And that's all the Republicans ever care about. The fact that Donald Trump, he got so-called, working class voters, because this is something you got to understand. From 2012, which is when Barack Obama won re-election, to the time to 2016, which was the election immediately after that, where Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton, the states that flipped from Obama to Trump, Iowa, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, all those states, um, they flipped because people who normally wouldn't vote for Republicans came out. Some people who voted for Obama came out and they voted for Trump. And I think the reason for this is because they saw Trump as an outsider. Maybe they voted for Obama in 2008 and then maybe held their nose and voted for him again in 2012. And that's because in 2008 he was running on hope and change. Oh, this guy can change everything. 2012, oh, well, he hasn't really changed much because they don't understand how politics works and they think that, oh, the president can just unilaterally change everything, take money out of politics, which I'm not saying Barack Obama was the best person to do that in the first place. But, economic disparities, wealth inequality, all these sorts of things. That Trump supporters, they would actually say they agree with. They would say they agree with getting money out of politics. They a lot of times would say they even agree with there not being just some rich fucking tax cheats hoarding all the fucking wealth. Okay, they would agree with a more equitable, economy, but they then would think because they're so disillusioned from the Democrats and Obama and Hillary Clinton, they would then say, oh well, I'll just vote for Trump now because, well, he's an outsider. Let's see if he can fix things. And then they get indoctrinated and brought into his cult. And he cultivated a cult of personality, something that Obama didn't really do. Obama is very well liked, much more liked than Trump, but not in this cultish, way that Trump is, okay? And the issue and the vulnerability for Biden is that he doesn't have a cult following, okay? The Biden base is largely an anti-Trump base. And the reason why, after you know, 2016 when all those states flipped back. Not all of them flipped back to Biden, but Biden won some states that Barack Obama didn't win in 2012, nor did Hillary Clinton win in 2016. And this is because, partly due to shifting demographics, but also because just there's a movement in America against Trump, against what the fuck he did, and against, this just fascism that he's wants to usher in. And that I think could be said without mincing words, especially now as he's basically regurgitating things that Hitler said almost verbatim, calling people vermin, saying we have to root out the vermin, in our country, saying, oh, well, because he made up all these lies about, Biden's Justice Department, targeting him for political purposes. Whereas if he was a normal poor person who committed the crimes he did, he would be already buried under the jail. He has undoubtedly been, you know, subjected to the benefit of being extremely wealthy and have a huge cult following, which people understand. And I think that's why he recently wasn't disqualified, from being on the Colorado primary ballot or even and I'm not sure how much that ruling applied to the general election, probably just across the board. The judge ruled that yes, Donald Trump committed an insurrection, but under the 14th Amendment, it bars, insurrectionists from holding office or anyone who either incited an insurrection or placed aid and comfort to people who, to an insurrection. The judge ruled that he did commit that, and insurrection does bar people from running for office, but only from president, nor from only from every office that is not the presidency. Okay, so this amendment applies that was made to stop, Confederate people who supported the Confederacy from running for office. This was only meant to prevent these Confederate scumbag traitors from running for the U.S. Senate, the U.S. House of Representatives, etc. But it was not meant to prevent anyone from being elected to the highest office in the land. That's fucking bullshit, okay? That was, of course, not what the drafters of this amendment thought, okay? They would have thought it would have applied to the president, but this judge was probably just scared of Trump, as I said, and that's why they didn't apply it to him. It's fucking bullshit, okay? And history is not going to look back on that judge, that Colorado judge, very well at all, okay? It's just true. Joe Biden got historic things done for the country, almost 14 million jobs. And, a lot of people will say, oh, that's just people coming back from COVID. No, it's not. Um, you can look at after the 2008 financial crisis how slow the economic recovery was, and this was one of Barack Obama's biggest vulnerabilities heading into the 2012 election was how slow the economy was recovering. Joe Biden passed the 1.9 trillion COVID spending bill, the COVID stimulus bill, but $1,400 in the pockets of ordinary Americans, cut child poverty in half in 2022 from his or was it 2021 from his enhanced child tax credit, which then when Joe Manchin and the Republican Congress let it, or the Republicans in Congress let it expire, child poverty shot up, I think, 3 times the rate it was. And yeah, so Joe Biden did this through his, spending bill. And if you see just think about it. If you were laid off from the pandemic and you got that money, that could have allowed you to stay afloat, to, pay off, your rent or, all these sort of utilities and things you needed to pay to not be kicked out of your damn, apartment or wherever you're staying. And it could keep you afloat until you could actually get another job. Because if you become homeless, how the fuck are you supposed to get another job? You don't even have an address. You can't pay for gas to get to and from work. You can't do all of these things. So, that was a lifeline for working class Americans. I'm not just saying, and lower and, very, very poor people on the brink of homelessness, one paycheck away from homelessness. Okay? Um, and I'm not just talking about the $1,400 because I know that's not a shit ton of money. But at the end of the day, there were other programs to help people, like the child tax credit, like small business loans that helps businesses stay afloat and to actually hire these people who needed jobs. Okay, and that very much contributed to the record job growth, and even the statistics that say, oh, Biden, he contributed this much to inflation through putting money in people's pockets. The same fucking statistics that say that, the same reports, however much inflation they say he caused, at least this is from my understanding, the more inflation they say he caused, the more jobs they say he created. So what's more important? Having a job and having to pay a little bit more for things, or not having a job and not being able to pay for anything because you don't have any fucking money coming in. Period. Okay, and controlling employment is much more important than controlling inflation. And that's not to say inflation shouldn't be controlled. Inflation has come down significantly, and gas prices have too. So you can keep talking all the shit you want on Biden. He's getting stuff done, and this should be shouted from the rooftops. And again, I'll go on and read. Biden has provided resolute support to Ukraine, allowing it to resist Russian aggression without provoking dangerous escalation. He has strengthened America's commitment to NATO, earning commitments from European allies to spend more on defense. International opinion of America has skyrocketed in 2021. 75% had confidence in the U.S. president to do the right thing regarding world affairs, up from 17% when he took office. He has maintained a tough line on China and provided nearly $4 billion to strengthen Taiwan's security. Finally, the AU-KUS deal with Australia and the United Kingdom has strengthened our ties in the Pacific. So, yeah, it's funny when people say, oh, Joe Biden has made us a laughing stock on the world stage. I don't think the world had a very good opinion of Donald Trump because I think the world is a lot smarter than a lot of Americans. Oh, kill me for saying that. Yeah, Trump supporters are fucking stupid, and a lot of Americans are fucking stupid. And I'll never take back that statement because that's true. A lot of people are stupid. A lot of people in the world are stupid. But it just so happens that there are so many Trump supporters in the United States that aren't mirrored in other countries. Yes, Trump is from this country, and Argentina just elected some Trump, look-alike. His hair kind of looks like Trump's. He's just some, just outrageous piece of shit. The alternatives weren't very much better. That being said, this guy, Javier Milei, or however you pronounce it, yeah, that guy's gonna do awful things to that country, and they're probably gonna vote him out, just like we voted out Trump, and like hopefully we will vote against Trump in 2024. Um, but yeah, it's funny when people say that because it's like the approval of the US president abroad has skyrocketed. And the reason why Biden's approval right now, I think Biden's approval right now is actually lower by like 1% or even less than that than Trump's was at this point in his presidency. And Trump's now, he doesn't really have an approval or disapproval rating, at least in the averages on like major websites like 538, because they ask like, do you have a favorable opinion, so it's favorable or unfavorable, and then for Joe Biden, since he's in office, it's approval or disapproval. Donald Trump is at 42.1% favorable rating, and I'm on 538 looking at this. Joe Biden's is at 38.9%. Wow. And so, but the fact is that a lot of people, they disapprove of Biden because he isn't progressive enough. He doesn't support, or he didn't fight hard enough for a ceasefire, which now there's a pause, and hostages are being released. Not obviously not a complete ceasefire, only for a few days. Um, Joe Biden didn't do some of these things. He didn't fight hard enough for a $15 minimum wage, which that wouldn't really be passed anyway. Would it if Manchin and Sinema, which were the fucking dinos in the Senate, Joe Manchin is not running for re-election, and Sinema, for whatever reason, changed to an independent. She's almost certainly not going to be re-elected to the U.S. Senate from Arizona. They completely derailed his agenda for nothing, for corporate money probably. And yeah, so that's the reason why we don't have a $15 minimum wage. But nonetheless, a lot of people on the left, they don't understand this. So in addition to nearly all of the GOP just disapproving of Biden because he's a Democrat, because they love Trump and they want to kiss his nutsack, um, these people on the left who may be naive, who may not understand things, they disapprove of him. Now, that being said, as a vegan, as someone who is more progressive than Biden, I could say I disapprove of him, okay? People say, oh, yeah, he's funding a genocide. I think that it's not good what they're doing. It's not good to bomb civilians like they've been doing. I agree with trying to find Hamas and killing them, and or at least putting them on trial for their crimes, so I wouldn't say I support a total ceasefire. Some people would consider my position a ceasefire nonetheless because I don't agree with really killing any civilians unnecessarily. I think it should be much more of a tactical operation, even if that would be a lot harder and strenuous and harder to carry out. Um, I still disapprove of Biden because he is funding another genocide, or I guess I'd be more willing to call it a Holocaust, because genocide, I think, implies you're trying to eradicate completely a population. No, Joe Biden supports subsidies. He granted, what was it, like $100 million to, struggling agribusiness, that were struggling during the pandemic so that they could murder chickens and pigs and cows and impregnate, all these animals against their will to perpetuate the cycle of suffering and violence, macerating baby chicks. Slicing off their beaks, slicing off their tails, cutting out the testicles of pigs without anesthetic. All these sort of horrible, just awful fucking things Joe Biden supports subsidies for. So, yeah, technically, I disapprove of Biden. But the fact is, what are we going to gain by voting third party? Absolutely nothing. What we're going to gain is another Trump presidency, because the other side is so committed to their cult leader that really the only people voting third party in the, well, at least more people voting third party will be on the left, or will be people who would be more likely to vote for Democrats if they weren't voting third party. What does that mean? That means that the leftist vote will be split up, divvied up, even if it's not completely divvied up, because a lot of people have the sense to fucking vote for Biden. But it will be divvied up enough to the point where Trump will win critical swing states that Biden only won by, what, a couple thousand votes? Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia. If Joe Biden loses those states, which he only won by a couple thousand votes, he's gonna fucking lose. And Donald Trump is gonna be president of the United States again, and he's gonna do all these horrible fucking things again. Okay? And the fact that people don't understand this is absolutely beyond me, okay? Um, and I think someone made a good point in my comment section recently, which was that he said, "Oh yeah, animal rights isn't the most important issue," and I said, "Well, how could that be? Because animal rights, there are just so many fucking victims from it. I think it was like 3 trillion animals a year. I think when you try to add everything up, yeah, 3 trillion animals worldwide. Um, you know, but they said that democracy is more important, and that actually makes sense because if our democracy goes away, if Donald Trump somehow succeeds in staying in power for life, which he said verbatim, oh, Xi Jinping is going to be president of China for life. Maybe I should try that. He is for being in office for his entire life. He's definitely a wannabe dictator. And the fact is, if he becomes a dictator, how are we going to achieve veganism? You could, say, oh, well, veganism isn't going to be carried out through, or animal liberation isn't going to happen through, um, us voting for politicians and then them banning animal agriculture and then the police, stopping people from murdering animals and raping them to impregnate them and all these sorts of things. If you're saying, oh well, that won't happen, we just need to change the hearts and minds of people, and then they'll stop on their own, which even then eventually we got 50 plus 1% of the population, then you would have to vote people in to then stop everyone else. Nonetheless, let's just say you think, oh, everyone's just gonna have a vegan epiphany. Free speech is a function of democracy as well. Democracy isn't just about voting. Free speech is protected because that's what makes a healthy democracy. Because then you can criticize people who are running for office. Because then you can, contribute to the marketplace of ideas. That is democracy. And even though maybe in places like Russia you can do vegan activism, even though that's not a democracy, um, let there be a popular vegan leader in Russia who stands a threat against Putin, yeah, absolutely, they would have a crackdown on vegan activism. I'm not exactly sure what the situation is there with that. There's probably already restrictions in place, um, but nonetheless, it's just absolutely imperative that we save our democracy because the liberation of animals rests upon the functioning and survival of our democracy. If you don't vote for Joe Biden, we're not going to have a fucking democracy, or at least the survival of our democracy is very much in peril. And in that case, how are we going to save animals, okay? How are we going to achieve animal liberation and free animals from their chains and take the knives away from their throats if there's a dagger at the throat of America, which, holds near and dear to it democracy and the belief that every valuable being, because they started off saying all men, but what it really means and what it's evolved to mean is all valuable beings, because it didn't include women at first, it didn't include black people at first, it didn't include Native Americans, but now it's starting to become more inclusive, and it should include animals if it means all valuable beings. All valuable beings are entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They're endowed by their creator, not necessarily God, which I don't believe in, but they are endowed by the creator, which is earth, which is the universe, which is whatever you want to call it. They are endowed with these rights, and the core of America is the value of equality. That is what America values. That is the core of America. It's not, hot dogs and eating hamburgers and these Trump supporters who actually fly the Confederate flag, which was a failed alternative country made to attack the United States and to preserve slavery within the South. Um, yeah, those people do not represent what America stands for. America stands for equality and justice, period. Okay? And I know I'm being long-winded on this, but still, the survival of animals going forward, the survival and the accomplishment of animal liberation is only going to happen if we preserve our democracy. I'm just trying to get that across. And make sure to watch this video here if you want to see more political content from me.